it's really they don't have a good understanding of philosophy. And so they do what I call history hypnosis, and it takes them out of the now, which is eternal. And thus, that's why it's all political communication all the time. All communication is political. And that's the subcontext to their communication activity is political speech. But they can't, yeah.
This is why she being so disturbed by the idea of what was suggested that it's an alliance of the Islamo-fascists and Marxists, because this is that was very kind of precise about it being like a pattern of thought. Like it's not like a specific political ideology or something. No, it's like they have an intention. They make a natural alliance in terms of their like natural interests.
Yeah.
Give me this nitpick. But what makes Islamic fascism?
Her claims are that Zionism is anti-Semitism, and that either you are with the Zionists or you are with the anti-Zionists. So her position is never one of unity. It's always of a what is it, binomial or a binary position. And it's the same position as George Bush. Either you're with us or you're against us. Either you're with the terrorists or you're with us, the anti-terrorists.
No, but I actually subscribe to that philosophy myself. I think it's either you're with us or you're against us. And I think like if you answer the question wrong about like who Crimea belongs to, you are a Russian. So like it's not that I don't get how it works. I just think that they try to kind of mirror the same valid points to their own nonsensical complete misunderstanding of how the world works.
Well, from like a communications perspective,
I think they're just plagiarizing from a communication perspective. It's just plagiarism. No. Załamasznie. Kapag nagdamay ba niyo sa pagdali ba at sara sa kaya kaya kita da buluşma bima. Mesela çok alfa gibi yani ama şu kadar. Yine hani işte fene. ما ترخيش من يمارك. ما ترخيش مرة. بطل. لا ما نزلوا إلا استعملوا بعضهم.
okay, I'm gonna hop out of here. Ali, God bless. I hope you have a great week. Bono Shalom. Let's keep the hits coming. Hit him again harder, and I hope Emrose wins the award for the most highly annoying person of all time. Maybe she can win a platinum award for most extremely annoying person of all time. We will see. We shall see. I recently, just now in the past hour, one of my YouTube accounts received a community guideline strike because of something Emrose said, not because of something I said, but the actual conversation was determined to be hate speech. So if you ever talk to that stupid person again, because I know you don't like talking to stupid people, be sure to tell her that Google YouTube believes that what she's saying is considered abusive hate speech and harassment, because she was also claiming Michael Braunstein was sexually harassing her. If you caught her, she tried to get everybody on everything that she could possibly get them on while accepting no personal responsibility, accountability in the slightest. She is a completely brain dead narcissist, as you said, and it has been a pleasure filming this 4-hour M Rose special. The problem with you, sir, is you are all words.
This recording has been specifically designed for those students who are beginners in the art and science of meditation. In the first part of the tape, the purpose and benefits of meditation are explained. The benefits are immense. The second part is a practical method which the beginner should listen to and use for guidance in his daily practice. Meditation is a technique which helps one to attain the higher state of consciousness. It is a positive method which can be used for leading a creative life or becoming successful in the world, as well as obtaining tranquility within. The simple and natural process of directing the mind within enables one to lead his thoughts, emotions, and desires to the center of reality. Meditation is the art and science of living and being. When practiced systematically, the benefits are immense. Meditation calms the mind, relieves the body of muscular, nervous, and mental tension, regulates the entire metabolism and gradually brings it into balance and harmony, and helps one to fathom the unfathomable levels of life. With the aid of meditation, the aspirant experiences deeper and higher levels of life and is able to realize all creative potential. In the rush and roar of modern civilization, we often become tense and feel drained from the day's problems. Even so-called success in the world accumulates tension, and life seems to be a series of conflicting thoughts and stressful events. For this, the technique of meditation has proven beneficial to people in all walks of life. For example, the student who cannot concentrate and whose attention is easily dissipated will find this method helpful. For executive stress and for those who suffer on account of insomnia, hypertension, ulcers, and other kinds of psychosomatic diseases, meditation serves to relieve the stress. For the wife, mother, who must cope with an exhaustible series of roles and demands, meditation becomes an energizing companion by restoring inner peace, calmness, harmony, and by reorienting her toward the busy details of everyday life. Meditation provides us with an opportunity to restore the harmony between the body and the mind. A balanced mind and sense of inner peace, which is necessary in conducting the duties of daily life, is attained. We no longer need to feel the mental and physical fatigue, which is a result of disorganized and dissipated energies. It is through meditation that both energy and perspective are regained. Meditation is not something to be approached anxiously or emotionally, nor is its objective to experience unusual visions or sounds. These predetermined imaginations can bring forth anticipated visions, which are in fact hallucinations and obstructions that interfere with the growth of the student. The purpose of meditation is not to encourage fantasies, but to release tensions from the body, nervous system, and mind. The mind has the habit of identifying itself with the external objects, which keeps the student from becoming aware of his essential nature. Meditation is a unique method which helps one to establish himself in his own essential nature, which is beyond visions, sound, and so-called psychic experiences. In meditation, peace, happiness, and bliss are experienced. Certain favorable conditions are required in the early stages of meditation. First, one should meditate in a clean, quiet, and pleasant environment. Second, it is helpful to do meditation at a fixed time each day. One can experiment for a few days until a definite time for daily practice is established. Third, it is helpful to perform preliminary exercises for cleansing the nerves and regulating the motion of the lungs. Because of various events during the waking, dreaming, and sleeping states, many people tend to breathe shallowly. Their inhalation and exhalation becomes irregular and disturb their autonomic nervous system. The exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, becomes imbalanced, and one finds it difficult to be steady in meditation. To overcome this disturbance, one should regulate exhalation and inhalation in an even way. Regulated breath strengthens the nervous system and calms the mind. Now, I give you a practical lesson. Sit on a cushion or a wooden chair. Place your hands on the knees.
Smokage, or it might even be BB, because just like I predicted, we just saw a big chunk of liberal Zionists that were visiting no other than the Emirates. So they're going to say, there you go, we got rid of the crazy ones, now we have the normal Zionists back, we can talk to them.
Oxygen and carbon dioxide. Any posture which allows you to be comfortable and steady is a good one. Practice the same posture every day so that the posture does not become a source of distraction to you. Those sit on the floor should practice an easy cross-legged posture in the beginning. Those sitting on the chair should sit with both feet apart on the floor, placing their hands on their thighs or near their knees. In all positions, the head, neck, and trunk should be in a straight line. Make sure your spinal cord is not crooked or stretched beyond your capacity so that you feel uncomfortable. Gently close your eyes and seal your lips. Between your chest and abdomen lies the diaphragm. Learn to use your diaphragm and form the habit of breathing with it so that its deep rhythmic movement becomes automatic. When you exhale, let your diaphragm push in and help the lungs expel carbon dioxide or waste gases. When you have completely exhaled, let your diaphragm help in creating another space for the fresh air. Exhale again and inhale again. Your attention should be directed towards the diaphragmatic movement. Exhale and inhale again. At least 5 to 10 times. Now, exhale, inhale, and exhale. Inhale, exhale, without any pause. Inhale, and don't retain. Exhale gently. See that you are not creating a pause. Your breath is smooth. It is not rhythmic. It is not noisy. When you have done it for some time, forget your diaphragmatic movement. Now, focus your mind on the flow of your breath. Observe that you do not create jerks or sounds through your nostrils. Your breath should be as deep as you can comfortably exhale and inhale. Watch the capacity of your lungs. Do not strain your lungs. No haste. Quietness and stillness of the body without any strain are the important factors. The more your body becomes still, the more you will find joy. Be aware that when you exhale, you are exhaling that air which is extraneous for your body. The air which you inhale is necessary for the healthy body and a sound mind. You are now mentally observing the gentle flow of your breath. If your mind runs here and there, you will find that your breath has started behaving irregularly. Remember that the breath and the mind have a close relationship. They reflect each other. Any sharp or disturbing emotional thought change the breath behavior. As you begin observing the breath, you may notice that you are creating a pause at the beginning and the end of the exhalation cycle and inhalation cycle. Do not suggest anything to your mind. Relaxation is spontaneous effect of this method. It is hard in the beginning not to allow any pause between the exhalation and inhalation. It needs practice and special effort. The doctors sometimes will find that the breath has become calm and serene. The seat of your mind is your brain, which is at the crown of your head. Now allow your mind to travel systematically downward, beginning with your forehead. This is a mental process. Your eyes are closed. Then your eyebrows are coming from your forehead to your eyebrows, eyelids, cheeks, and mouth. Closing the lips. Exhale and inhale. Do it again. Exhale and inhale. Now let your mind come down to your jaw. Locate the tension in the neck and throat region. Shoulders, arm, wrists, hands and fingers. Exhale as though you are expelling all your tensions. And inhale as though you are receiving vital energy from the cosmos. Your hands, wrists, arms and shoulders are now free of tensions. Your mind has again come to the throat area. Come to the chest now. Exhale and inhale. Exhale at least 4 times here.
The most secretive organization. It runs on a black budget.
And inhale 4 times.
The most secretive
When you exhale, you are expelling all your worries and anxieties. When you inhale, you are inhaling the vital energy.
I never thought I would start a YouTube video off with.
The energy that you inhale from the cosmos is fulfilling you. You are filling the depths of your lungs with it. Come down to your abdomen.
Archer Avenue, by Midway, the
Hips.
south side, where dudes are engaged in
Come to your
shootouts.
thighs, knees,
Archer Avenue.
calf muscles, ankles, feet and toes. Exhale as though your whole body is exhaling. And inhale as though your whole body is inhaling. Exhale and inhale again.
Archer.
Continue exhaling and inhaling as you gently lead the mind back up systematically to the crown of your head. Begin from the toes. Your toes have no tension. The ankles have no tension. Calf muscles, knees, hip joints, these all have no tension. Exhale and inhale. Now direct the mind along the vertebrae, locating the tension in the spinal column. Gently come up, releasing the tension from the vertebrae until you reach the crown of your head. Again you are paying attention towards the flow of your breath. Let your mind be aware of the calm and serene flow of your breath. Breath and mind are twin laws of life. They interact, they react, they respond to each other. Let your mind make a gentle, conscious effort to guide your breath so that it remains calm, deep, and without any noise or jerks. Bring the attention back to your breath. Your breath is becoming calm and serene. It has no jerks, no sound. Slowly and gently open your eyes. Now, do not forget to repeat this process at least twice a day. That relaxation and the preliminary step toward meditation, which you are seeking, will soon be yours after about 1 month. Develop your practice. The next step is available on tape. Oh, peace, peace, peace. not tied by your thoughts. It is relaxed, yet still and alert. You are not body alone. You are breathing being. This life breath is given to you by a center. We all are living, we all are receiving the same. Why should we not love each other? When we forget Him, forget that center, we become individual. When we remember, we all become part and parcel of that center. Oh, my breath is creating problem for me. It is shallow. It should be deep. When you exhale all your toxins, problems, worries. When you inhale energy, hope, grace.
All right, we're back live to Chicago Mayoral, Kitover. We're at
Your
two community
whole
guidelines strikes.
being is
I'm going to
inhaling.
keep content more conservative on this YouTube channel now.
Your all
No more
cells are
clubhouse
floating
live
in the
rooms and people
air
using egregious
actually.
speech. So we're listening
Your
to
whole
meditation.
being is floating in the space. Now, any thought that comes to me, I will not allow my thought to control my life. I will see that thoughts let go. I will witness, but I will never get involved with my thought patterns. All the thoughts and emotions I am witnessing, but I am not involving myself. There are different colors, different modes, different feelings, but I am different from them. Who are you? Are you thought? Are you breath? Are you body? No, no, no. I cannot explain my nature through speech, action, and mind. My nature is perennial happiness and joy. My mind again is going towards the world, think with thought patterns, because you have not arranged your routine well. You have kept many things pending. You are attached to the things. Don't do it. Tell your mind that your mind is your instrument. Though it's a fine instrument, yet it is instrument. How the instrument can hurt me? Instrument is mine. I don't belong to instrument. I will try to maintain happiness, cheerfulness, and bliss all the time. There is peace within and love. Breathe deeply, exhale, and inhale. Remember the Lord of life by remembering your mantra gently. Do your duties. Open your eyes and start doing your duties, but do not forget your mantra. Peace, peace, peace.
just, paper trade, play with some fake money, lose that shit, learn, hit your pay, and then you be straight,
This shit look dope though. The way it just look.
Yeah, it get easy. Like when you.
And God specifically brought down a surah for him, and it was duha, where God he
one academic, like I'll even take Bob Herman, right? Who never ever makes a claim like yours. It is so bizarre. And
Do not make any fucking sense.
You know what don't make sense? You know what really don't make sense? That men don't have enough testosterone in their system to be the leaders that they want women
That's
to believe
bullshit.
they are. That's why
Can
the
I say
society is
something?
set up the way that it is.
This ain't even locked.
Once I get in, let me get in real quick. Hey,
I
Lock.
wanted to speak.
Because Obama did it? Right. But
That's not what we're discussing today.
I get that, but
So I would like to narrow the discussion back down to the topic at hand, okay?
okay. The answer to the topic at hand is that I can understand why people would be worried, but there is a bunch of jurisprudence that says the exact opposite. And unless we think Trump is some sort of a dictator and an emperor, he doesn't rule by fiat. He just doesn't.
Thank you, Marshall. I will just interject this. I've covered many court cases, bench trials, with a jury you never know for sure. Bench trials where I was certain I would know what the judge would rule, and I was surprised by the judge's ruling. I would never presuppose that I know that a case such as this or any other case that reached the Supreme Court would fall on the side that you suggested it will.
But I
personally would never presuppose that.
No, I didn't say Supreme Court. I said appellate court. And I said that because the jurisprudence on the matter is clear. It's like saying you could put in hate speech laws. Well, if the court completely reversed itself, surely you could put in hate speech laws. But they don't completely reverse themselves on the First Amendment. And I have a really, really, really hard time believing two things. Number one, that they will let the executive govern elections by fiat. Because
why are you saying this is by fiat?
Hi, Ann. Welcome to the Marshall Stankin Rankin Show. Marshall Rankin Stankin, one of the most highly annoying people in the world.
The court will rule that the president has to have the right to determine how to distribute funds that have been allocated by the Congress. Because that's really what it comes down to.
I'm going to say there's going to be an argument over the Impoundment Act, and as long as he did not run afoul.
Right, but there's going to be a counter argument that the president has the right to determine how he spends money that has been allocated by the Congress.
And maybe he will be given that, but the court will also probably say that he doesn't have the right to change elections as a consequence because
but he's not changing the elections. The states are changing the elections.
He's saying unless you...
Okay, let me give you an analogy. Hold on. We're going to go on because this is taking way too much time. Let me give you an analogy of something that happened in real life.
Did you hear me justify
There was a time in this country that we may be at the precipice of again when there was a gasoline shortage. And the government determined that in order to save on gasoline, the maximum speed on interstate highways should be 55 miles an hour. The problem with that is, even though that they are interstate highways, the speed limit is not determined by the federal government. The speed limit is determined by the individual states. So the federal government could not mandate by fiat, as you suggest, that states lower from 70, 80, 75, or 70, or 65, or 60 miles an hour, the maximum speed to 55. They couldn't do that. So what did the government do? They said, well, if you don't lower it to 55, we will withhold highway funds from you. And they prevailed. I think that's a perfect example of the argument that the government will make. I don't know how the court is going to rule. As a person who believes that the states have the right to set their own election laws, that's clear in the Constitution, I might rule, if I were a justice, that the government has the right to determine where the funds are set, and if they don't comply with the government guidelines, not regulations, I have the right to withhold that money, or the president has the right to withhold that money. I don't think it's as clear cut as you suggest.
Okay, maybe not.
Okay, maybe not.
Alan, A-L-A-N. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Howard followed by Scott, and then by Alan, A-L-A-N.
Hey, Gary. I'm going to be concise because I think getting into the weeds and all the technical stuff as it relates to jurisprudence misses what the bigger question is. This is not just a policy issue, but if you really think about it, this is the person who has been elected, no doubt about it, who has the responsibility, the highest office in the land. And essentially, this action can lead to us being less safe, or certain citizens in certain states being less safe. And it's not just a legal question, or, is this something that a president can do because a former president did it, and a former president before that who wore a tan suit did it. No, this is about the moral issue of, should the president even be using this as a political football? Yes, highway funds, go ahead, make a political football out of it. But when you're talking about homeland security at a time where we're been in a state of war, a war that it looks like, we're going to be taking a big L for, that's increasing the risk on everybody, every citizen, every American across the globe. And it's not making the world safer. And I just think it is actually a malicious use of power to be using this as a political football and threatening just for political gain. And that's just my view on it, Gary. So I'll land it there. Thank you.
And my only response to that is that Stephen Colbert, in my opinion, the funniest thing he ever did, the funniest bit he ever did, was the other day when he went to the opening of the Obama Library in Chicago wearing a tan suit.
Oh my God, it's so funny! A tan suit? How could you? How could you wear a tan suit? Oy vey!
No sound from Scott.
Well, Gary, wearing a tan suit, in a lot of circles is considered sacrosanct.
All right, testing. 1, 2, 3. Coming in.
Test. Live with the Scott Ken Jones podcast.
Yeah, so I think I am with you, Gary, that it's not as clear to me that this is illegitimate, right? That the court was out. Yeah, Marshall makes interesting arguments. I think,
this ain't nothing. That's what people leave on my guy. This ain't nothing. Oh, it's something. Scott Ken Jones can't hear you. Mic check. Mic check 1. Mic check 2. Scott Ken Jones can't hear you. Can't hear you, Scott Ken Jones. Hello?
In this country, we had 50 state elections, and within those 50 state elections, there's a lot of diversity within the states, right? I'm sure every county. I don't know, I know that I voted in the Philly suburbs and I voted in Philadelphia, and it's not always been the same voting machine and things like this. So you see these mechanisms are different, right? So there's a diversity in how we do elections. I want to say that I don't think there is an election fraud problem, which we've talked about, probably ad nauseum.
There's no election fraud problem. It's all legit.
Statistically, it just does not happen unless there's.
It happens at the petition level, Scott, not just at the ballot.
The amount of fraudulent ballots cast and stuff like that, it's just such a rarity. I will say though that right now we do have an election confidence problem, and I think that the president has created this. I think one side of the aisle does have a crisis of confidence in the election system. I mean, we all know that when you put misinformation, disinformation in the system out into the ether, into the culture, it's very difficult.
Oh, Scott.
So I think I do think that it would be interesting to look at the Baker Carter. You remember back in
1975 when nobody was paying attention to nothing.
And the sort of contested, that came down to, protecting the life of the unborn Chad in Florida and the complexities of the counting. After that, the Gore-Bush election. In 2002, Congress responded with a bunch of input from state and local election officials and experts. They responded by enacting the Help America Vote Act in 2002 to respond to some of the issues that were perceived as problematic in the 2000 election. However, by 2004, it was clear that HAVA hadn't settled all the arguments around election reform. And so there was concerns about ID, there was concerns about voting technology, absentee and mail ballots, all this stuff we still talk about today. So in response to these concerns, former President Jimmy Carter and former Secretary of State James Baker III, Republican and Democrat, agreed to co-chair a bipartisan commission housed at American University to examine this stuff and to come up with some sensible election reform propositions. So the final report was called Building Confidence in U.S. Elections and made a bunch of recommendations, including a national system to connect state and local voter registration lists so that when you're, when you leave a locality, I mean, I know when I've moved, I haven't called my local election board from where I moved.
You didn't call them?
I just re-registered.
Scott, I guess you could do that. I guess you ain't got to call them, do you, Scott? So why bring it up?
They did advocate for voter ID based on universal available real ID card. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't worry about voter ID in my state. I've never had to use voter ID, but they do match signatures. But that is one thing that this commission proposed. Also, they proposed policies to improve voter access for communities, as well as innovations like voter centers and voter information lookup sites. They recommended stronger efforts to combat fraud, especially in absentee voting, and auditable paper backups for all voting technology. So you'd have a paper receipt for every ballot. Now, whether it's these or other measures, I do think, and again, I don't have a crisis. I don't have any fear that there's masses of undocumented folks voting or there's a bunch of election fraud. But But a lot of the country does, and I think on some level we have to respond to that. And something like taking seriously a bipartisan recommendations like Carter and Baker suggested might be something we have to look at in order to have a sense that universal buy-in of the country that the elections are trustworthy and reliable. Again, I have no problem.
Of course you got no problem, Scott Kent Jones.
A lot of people do. So I think we have to respond to that if we're going to move forward as a country. Thank you.
Scott, if you go to vote and I went to vote ahead of you, or I went to vote behind you, and I walked up to the election register, the election worker, and they say, "Where's your name?" I say, "Scott Jones." Well, wait a minute, Scott Jones already voted. Or if I did it ahead of you and you came up, Scott Jones. Well, Scott Jones has already voted. How am I as a how am I not going to get, how are they not going to catch that? There's a huge danger that if I vote illegitimately in your name, I'm going to get caught. Now, when it comes to, registering illegal aliens, I believe every state, because of national law, prohibits non-citizens from voting in national elections. So, if I'm not permitted by law, how am I going to be able to cast the ballot? I walk in, I'm not even registered to vote in a national election. So why are they going to hand me a ballot, paper or electronic? It doesn't matter. How am I going to do that? It's like,
if you're registered in multiple places and you're in a state that does universal mail-in balloting, they may send 2 ballots, right? Not because it's nefarious, but because you're registered in 2.
Bingo! Election fraud. Marshall Rankin engages in election fraud. We got him busted. Ballot harvester.
And making sure people
busted.
Well,
Marshall Rankin's busted.
And I registered to vote in New Jersey. I was asked, I transferred my driver's license from Michigan to New Jersey, and so New Jersey notified Michigan, and Michigan removed me from the rolls.
Yeah, that doesn't happen most of the time all over the place. There are tons of places in the United States, in fact, most places in the United States, where the updating of voter rolls is seldomly done, and the number of people who fill out change of address forms is way below the number of people that actually move. So if you're in Pennsylvania and you move to New Jersey and you never bother to fill out a change of address form, you just register in New Jersey, and both states have, say, universal mail-in balloting, and they're going to send the ballots to your home. Well, then you get a universal mail-in ballot and fill it in Pennsylvania, and you get a universal mail-in ballot in New Jersey.
That's a great example.
And neither of those is breaking the law.
That's a great example. That's a great example, given that neither of those states have universal mail-in ballot.
No, I know they didn't. My point is, if a state does have that, that can be a problem. Like when I'll go knock doors, I'll run into places with 4 families. Not because 4 families live in the home, but because they've never bothered to change their address. And because the state has never bothered to go through its rolls and make sure people live where they say they live.
Damn, Marshall Rankin is reading himself with this fucking little clip right here.
Well, then you run into what Scott said. You have a bunch of people who think that the election can be messed with.
No, but in actual fact...
Marshall Rankin's spilling the beans! Marshall, don't tell them the truth!
You're talking about your situation in Texas. So you go there, and people used to live there, and the rolls have not been updated. And then...
They harvest the ballots! And they submit fraudulent ballots. Marshall Rankin is engaging in election fraud. Busted. Marshall Rankin is busted.
Voting from that residence?
It means they can't be registered to vote at that.
I know, but does that mean that they are?
There's no way to tell that from the registration. Not unless I had Mr. Smith, Garcia, Anderson, and Gonzalez all in a room. All that you know when you look at the map is that Mr. Gonzalez, Anderson, Smith, and Garcia are all registered at this address.
Okay, so when you knock on the door,
they fill out their voter registration form for Texas, and they fill out that address, their unique voter identification number gets sent to that address. And so maybe they vote, maybe they don't vote. But it's like it registers multiple people living at an address. And Texas doesn't do this. Like, in order to get a mail-in ballot in Texas, you have to be over 65. You have to have a hardship if you're under 65. But in a place like California, where there are universal mail-in balloting, and California does have similar problems to Texas, you end up getting mail-in ballots for the same people at multiple places. I'm not saying that means there's voter fraud. I'm just saying, to Scott's point, that there is a worry about this, and that at some point you probably have to address the worry. I mean, that I can't think of anything more truthful than that. That's exasperating for people who look at the current system and go, well, it works just fine. But the problem is, if a good portion of your countrymen don't believe that the election is, like, if they don't believe that the electoral process is fair or honest, then you're going to have even less buy-in. And if the question doesn't get answered because they're simply factually wrong, their thoughts don't go away. When this happened with Tilden in the 1870s, the Democratic Party's thought of rigged elections didn't go away for 35 or 40 years. Right? It didn't matter that they were wrong. It didn't matter that their view of elections was just
Gotta keep clipping Marshall Rankin. We got the inside track now on ballot election fraud. Ballot harvester. Marshall Stinkin' Rankin from Hidalgo County, Texas, is a ballot harvesting election fraudster. Busted!
Promulgate a lie, and because of that lie,
it's not a lie. We just confirmed it, Gary.
Workable election system to satisfy the concerns that he is lying about, knowing that it's a lie, given the fact that there has been no evidence to suggest that any election was stolen.
That's what we had to do in 1886.
1886.
Count that after the 1876 election. It's exactly what we had to do, because a giant portion of our countrymen didn't believe the election was truthful. I'm not saying that's right or good. I'm just saying it was.
Yeah. Well, I know that I heard people say, because, and this was almost predictable, that when the mail-in ballots, which got counted last in Los Angeles, when the lead changed in the mayoral election, see, we knew this was going to happen. They really believed that the Democrats had dumped a bunch of fake ballots, and they're absolutely insistent upon that. But that's not going to change. Are you suggesting that we not allow any mail-in ballots? I don't know whether this proposal does that. Are you suggesting that we not allow mail-in ballots?
No. Of course not, Gary.
No, I work in elections. Hold on. I work in elections. I'm kind of partisan about mail-in ballots. I think in certain places they help Republicans. My point was,
I don't care whether
there is a percentage of the population, a hefty one, that doesn't believe they help, and their votes matter as much as ours.
Okay, but to use your argument, that the perception becomes...
Get him, Gary!
Therefore, the perception has to be corrected, not the reality. If a large number of people believe that mail-in ballots are subject to fraud, and that the Democrats are dumping fake ballots in the mail, and there's no way to prove otherwise, even though we know that's not true, your argument is people think that, and we have to correct that perception. Great. Then should we get rid of mail-in balloting?
No, Gary. You're not listening.
You have to do something. I'm not suggesting you get mail-in balloting.
Well, I'm
adding to what Scott said, which is, like it or not, whether they're right or not, they believe this, and they affect national politics, and they affect state politics. And so, regardless of whether these people are honest or truthful. Their views are impacting things. And it doesn't help when states don't clean up their rules, because you end up with situations where you get mail-in ballots for groups of people who live in different places. And while that is not a nefarious thing, it's very, very easily explainable, because voter rolls haven't been updated. People's malicious nature and their tendency to attribute things to malice more than stupidity means that view that mail-in ballots are not helpful is going to be around for a while.
Okay, so
and it's going to
Scott,
it's going to stick to national politics, and it's going to impact state elections.
Okay, so Marshall, let's say we go and we make these changes, and a goodly portion of the population now has the perception, even if there's no proof that that perception is accurate, that the Trump administration has manipulated things so that the Republicans can steal elections because they've changed the rules to be advantageous to the Republicans. Now we have a perception, even if it's not
make
true.
That up. Parts of the Democratic Party have been arguing that for 8 months.
Right.
No,
so
here.
Right. So there's a perception, and you just said the perception about the elections that the president promulgated that are not accurate have to be addressed because people believe it. Well, now we're going to have perceptions that the Republicans are controlling the election based on the fix that we came up with. Now, how are we going to address that? Go back to the way it was.
Which all of this goes right back to my thought on executive power, which is when my guy has it.
No, that's not the issue at hand. The issue at hand is your argument is there is a perception. And because there's a perception in the minds of people, that's a reality. So even though it's not true, we have to address it. Now, I said that if addressing it...
Yes, when this happened in the 1870s, it affected the Democratic
I
Party.
agree with you. I got that. I got that argument, Marshall. Marshall, I don't know why it is I ask you a question and you don't hear my question. I'm not very articulate, apparently, today. I'm going to move on. But you're not responding to the question. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm asking you a question. Trying to be consistent to your argument, and you're fighting me on it, and I don't want to fight. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on because it's not fair to the other people.
We have to pay attention.
I got a crap load of people, and I don't want to talk with you anymore on stage. We can talk elsewhere. There are too many people waiting in queue. It's already 5:55. I'm moving on.
Hey, Gary, can I just say, it's interesting. I think this conversation is interesting. I mean, I don't want to just sort of capitulate to Trump and the sort of election fear-mongering. But I do think that there is a sense in which, again, this is why I point to the Carter-Baker Commission. Like, I mean, could we come up with a consensus of best practices? And again, leave it in the hands of the states, but attempt to sort of build some consensus in the states that these are some best practices. Now, again, this is from the perspective of someone. I think this is a solution in search of a problem to some degree. But I mean, we do have to deal, as Marshall said, I think, with the reality of things on the ground. But at the same time, Gary, I mean, I take your point that what happens if you accommodate this, and the other group thinks it's illegitimate, which is why I think you
right. So now we have to get a solution in search of a problem again.
Right.
So this is not good governance at all, in my opinion. I don't think we should be fixing a problem that doesn't exist. If the problem exists, fix it. If there's need to clean up the voter rolls in the various states, well, everybody in each state should pressure their state government to clean up their voter rolls. That's a states' rights issue because the states run the elections. And so I don't know what the situation is in Texas. Marshall does, but Marshall's in a position to pressure his state legislature and his state government to do something about it. And that's how you resolve it. Or change the Constitution to where the federal government determines how elections are run. And that's an argument to be made. And I think that's where the president is trying to, through hook or by crook, get us into that spot where the federal government runs the elections.
It's not just the president. The president believes this, and part of the party believes this. But the party leadership in the Democratic Party also believes this.
Okay, but it's not the Democratic Party who is.
No. I'm saying the belief in nationalizing elections isn't just on one side.
I understand that, but in the context of today, oh, for God's sakes, Marshall, tit for tat, quid pro. I will agree that there are tags on both sides of the aisle, and I will agree that everybody is maneuvering for their position. But the discussion today is not about a Democratic proposal. The discussion today is about what this president is proposing, withholding Homeland Security funds from states that do not comply with his vision of how elections ought to be run. So when it's the Democrats proposing it, I don't want anybody to say, but the Republicans feel blah, blah, blah. Why do you always bring that up? It's not germane to the conversation.
As I said, because it explains why it is so popular amongst the wings of each party, and it explains why it keeps popping its head up in discussions.
I don't care. I personally don't. But I did not make that the topic of the day. That's not the topic. The topic is this proposal. And I want to focus on this proposal. I don't really care much about what Schumer might think. I care about this proposal. I want to know what people think about it. And I don't think the way the discussion has gone for the first hour has been beneficial in responding to the question at hand, frankly. I will make the exception to what Howard said. Howard made an extremely important point that he doesn't believe that Homeland Security funds should be held hostage to the whims of the administration, whether it's a good proposal or not. And I think that's really the question here. Let's just say, for the sake of discussion, we all agree that how the president wants elections to be run would be much better than the way they're run today. Should we withhold Homeland Security funds from states who are reticent to do so?
No.
That's really the question.
No, we shouldn't.
So then why are you bringing up all this other stuff? It has nothing to do with the proposal before us, in my opinion. If I'm missing something, somebody could correct me on it. Alan, am I missing something here? Alan, followed by Brent.
Hello, everyone. Hope you all...
Oh, I didn't know that this Alan was going to talk. Alan, followed by...
Did I jump on the other Alan? Oh, shame on me. No, Gary, I totally agree with what you said. This thing, it's one more step to the dictatorship whatsoever. What the hell they come up with the Homeland Security in the first place? If I recall it right, after September 11, they thought one extra layer should save us. Now that you're going to cut the budget of that, then what? Who's going to pay the price? Me and you and everybody else in this room, whoever comes from United States. I'm not worried about the one join us from the Europe. This is getting worse and worse by the day. Back to you.
Thank you, Alan. Alan, followed by Brent. ALAN, followed by Brent.
Okay, this is a technology issue. First of all, we don't have to go back to the 1870s. We can look at 1960. Richard Nixon did not make an issue in 1960 of the fact that he thought the ballot box was stuffed in Chicago. We could go back to 2000 when I think we did some useful things to help elections. To answer your question, Gary, on the top, absolutely, I'm opposed to the idea that you would withhold funds on this basis. This is an insane proposal. I am gratified that my young friend has so much confidence in the courts. And I think the early discussion about this was quite enlightening. I have a couple of suggestions. First of all, I think we really should talk about a federal referendum just like we have in California. You know, I wasn't a fan of Proposition 13, and I don't mean to get off on this, other than to say it passed. We live by that rule, and I think it changed the way the whole country thinks to some extent about taxes. We should have if the president really feels this way, he should propose a federal referendum process that we could go on. But if we are a republic, not a democracy, as Marshall often emphasizes, this is a stupid, dumb idea, and it should not happen. And I think that we two massive points here. We get bogged down in the very, very specifics when in fact voting is about a massive number of people. And anytime you pull a very specific instance out of something and try to make it general, you have a problem. For example, someone lives to age 99 and they were a smoker, and people say smoking isn't, they draw the conclusion that smoking isn't harmful. Well, that's a dumb conclusion, right? I mean, we know that smoking is harmful. And we know that based on the aggregate, not based on one specific case. So I think that's a point we should bring up. And I think the other point that we should really emphasize here is that, you know, it's really up to each state. That was the way the Constitution was founded. And voting is a very concentrated activity. It's not like driving across a state line where one minute you're in California and the next minute you're in Arizona, and you're on a federal highway. And you know that in that case, or in the case of interstate commerce, things can break. But with respect to voting, this is so incredibly stupid. And I hope Marshall is right that the courts throw it out completely. But I come back to my basic belief, which is that Marshall's point about the universal executive is also one we need to consider. Presidents have become too powerful in the last several years, and it should be limited in some way. And as evidence of
but
that,
not under Obama.
Subject, but only Donald Trump.
Not Barack Hussein Obama, the man with all the grace, poise, intelligence, so sophisticated and classy.
You know,
what a class act that guy is.
The future of international relations. So to come back to your question, Gary, hell no. And let's talk about some more realistic ideas like a national referendum.
Thank you, Alan. We'll go to Brent, followed by Daryl.
So I only make a few points. I mean, I kind of lean towards that you know the courts will.
I'm bald, asshole. It's called male pattern baldness.
There's a few points. I kind of base that on
androgenic
ACA
alopecia.
Ruling, you know, their
androgenic alopecia. Don't make no ad hominem attacks on my YouTube channel. I'm reporting you.
That the federal government cannot coerce
How
states
dare you
into doing a policy it disagrees with. In that case, expanded Medicaid under the ACA by essentially taking away funding that they already had. You know, a lot of discussion on the highway bill or the lowering the drinking age. In that case, what they found is that the funding kind of directly related to highway safety, and that's kind of where they drew the line there. In this case, I think they're going to have a hard time making that case. You know, this is funding essentially for counterterrorism, for kind of, you know, emergency preparation grants to states, and it's going to be a hard link to make to ballot things like ballot design and things like voter registration, etc. So I kind of lean towards we're going to be okay if the courts will uphold and reject this. That said, it just does kind of show you how power hungry this executive is. This executive does not care if he changes the rules to benefit him. and will do so any way you can. And that's a threat to democracy. And I don't, Marshall talks a lot about.
Hi, boys and girls. This is Cowboy John running for mayor of Chicago. Go to ChicagoMayorVote.com. Hey, my friends. It's me, Darren Bailey. Hey, friends. Taxation's gotten out of control. And the Illinois state budget, well, that's a runaway train. Go to ChicagoMayorVote.com or ChicagoMayoral.com. This is Chicago mayoral candidate John Kitover. Thanks for coming to my YouTube live now. Hit that like button, share and subscribe. We're listening to a fake rhino out of Hidalgo County, Texas. Marshall Stankin Rankin.
The thought that elections are rigged, the thought that people are nefarious, isn't going away anytime.
We can't make the thoughts go away.
Agreeable Republicans and agreeable Democrats who get together and make rules that don't say that. And I don't know how you push that out of a group of voters who will end up mattering in states. I'll be very clear. I don't think you should placate these people, but I don't know how their views don't end up mattering. Regardless of how wrong.
Don't placate these people.
They vote. They advocate. A lot of them are involved. What do you do with that group of people? Because it's not.
You can't make them stop thinking.
It's not like simply saying they're wrong has gotten us to a place where their influence is irrelevant, right? Like if you make their influence irrelevant, please tell me. I'll adopt it. I'll do.
Tell me how to make their influence irrelevant.
Like I don't
know how to do it.
Those people and make their views irrelevant. Like the party doesn't seem to have the power to do that.
Well, I mean, I might, if I were in your shoes, I might kind of start with supporting a party and media apparatus that pumps that information to those voters and pumps that perception to those voters for political gain. I mean, that's kind of where I personally would start if I were looking at something I personally could do, is I would stop supporting that. But on a bigger scale, Marshall, you're not going to do much. I mean, this is up to party leaders in the Republican Party and the elites in the Republican Party. The answer to those voters, I would say, is that people that should know better should maybe stop pumping them full of conspiracy theories.
Thank you for that, Brent. We'll go to Daryl, followed by Jules.
Hey, Gary, can you hear me? So, it's interesting because to Brett's point, if you remember the big Fox News lawsuit with the voting machines, right? Fox pivoted to this argument that, well, anyone, and this is in the documents, well, this is hyperbole, and if anyone, this is commentary, and it's not actually journalism. And they made the argument that if anyone takes this seriously, they shouldn't. That was actually what they argued in court. It didn't help them. The thing with, both, my two friends, Marshall and Scott, it's this idea that, people believe this, so what do you do? People also believe that vaccines cause autism. And you can't, one of the fundamentals of logic is you can't disprove a negative. So how do you disprove something that's not true anyway? You can't. You're just going to be beating your head against a brick wall. There's the classroom and then there's the corner. And in the classroom,
I'm a journalist. I just want to let the YouTube moderators know that when he said vaccines don't cause autism, he wasn't making a claim. This is a journalistic live stream, and I want the YouTube moderators to know no medical misinformation has been stated. That was a generalized statement, and he's trying to make a point about election fraud. Thank you for this attention to this matter.
Washington, they got on buses, went to Washington, and try to stop the certification of an election. It doesn't behoove anyone to spend a great deal of energy and effort trying to disprove something that was never true in the first place. I don't personally know how to fight that. You know,
how do we make them stop thinking?
One of Marshall's points that all of these
I don't know how to do that.
Executive orders, but
how do we stop them from thinking?
Is a very important thing as well. Yes, Obama used executive orders. He didn't use them as much as, like, let's say, Bush did, you know, or, you know, I think he's like 30, maybe 26, 27. But he used his mostly to do memorials. He did some stuff for some social change, and I think he did some stuff with regards to some federal spending, but it was, and I'll Google it, but it was mostly about how money is allocated. When you're talking about, you know, federal government taking over elections, that's something completely different, because that's something that can impact every single one of us. And what I find ironic is that when it came to abortion, it's all about states' rights. When it comes to voting, it's the federal government knows what's best for all the states. And this, you know, again, you know, the idea that, you know, he's not malicious. Everyone who knows him will tell you that he carries grudges. If you speak poorly about him, he's going to primary you. If you look at what they're doing with social media now, if they're trying to, and this is working its way through the system, they're silencing voices who are critical of him. You know, look at what they were doing with this is all documented. Look at what they were doing with the Epstein files. They're keeping track of people who look at the files online. This is why when they first dropped, I was all through those files. I was obsessed. I haven't looked at those files because they're tracking people. He carries a grudge. A grudge, by definition, is malicious. He not only carries grudges, but he goes after. He tries to invoke an army to also carry his grudges. This idea that elections aren't safe or elections are fraudulent, there is no evidence that any election has been substantially impacted by fraud. And again, to Marshall's point, okay, the mail-in ballots, I would have to okay, I'm in Florida, I'm now in New York, I get 2 mail-in ballots. I would have to intentionally mail both of them in and then commit fraud just because I receive a ballot at 2 addresses. And that's,
plus you have to travel
down
I-95 to vote your second time now.
And that's intentional fraud. And we do have examples of intentional fraud, but there just hasn't been, there's no study that says that it has been to the level where it's actually impacted the results of an election. So this is just, I'm going to throw out some buzzwords, and I'm going to talk, and I'll say it, I don't care if anybody likes it or cares about my opinion. I'm going to talk to the LCD, the least common denominator. I'm going to get them aroused about something that's not true, because they themselves are not going to go and say or look into, is this true? Because I've hit an emotional pressure point. They're now going to react. And I wonder how many of these politicians in the past 2 years, as we get closer and closer to the midterms, and as it seems like there may be a change, how many of these politicians that talk about election fraud actually believe it? Meaning they might go on the nightly news and say, well, we have to secure elections, we have to secure elections. What are they basing this on? You know, Mike Johnson did an interview, I think it was CBS Sunday Morning, and he said, she asked him point blank, do we have, or do you have, proof of election fraud? And he said, well, I don't have proof, but common sense would tell you. Excuse my French, what the fuck does that even mean? You don't have proof, but common sense should tell you. So I guess common sense is how we're going to govern and pass laws now. Common sense tells you that there's fraud in the election, but I don't have proof of it. That's Martian speak. That's some other fucking language. But there are people who hear that and will say, well, Johnson is smarter than me, so obviously he knows something I don't know. Therefore, Johnson is correct and elections are fraudulent. I don't know how as a society, as a collective body, we convince people that an untruth is simply not true if they have already chosen to believe it. I don't know how to fix that. I know that you're not fixing it by federalizing elections when the entire establishment has been built on this backbone of states' rights.
Well, here's the thing, Daryl. The great thing about a conspiracy theory is you don't have to prove anything. I'm going to start a channel just to promulgate conspiracy theories. I can say anything I want about anything, and I don't have to prove it. That's the beauty of a conspiracy theory. What do you think about that? Are you in it with me? Well, you want to be a co-host?
Yeah, you know what we should do? We should bring back lawsuits. You know, if some guy goes on national television and says that Michelle Obama's a man, there should have been a lawsuit on his doorstep the very next day.
That could be our first. That could be our first topic.
Well, that the other chick has us beat with Macron saying that the French prime minister's wife is a man, and she's already getting sued. I would prefer not to spend the rest of my life in court.
Well, I think we should, and I think we should be equal opportunity beater-uppers. I think we should. I think we should also talk about the diapers that the president wears.
Oh.
It doesn't matter if it's true.
Yeah.
I don't have to prove it. I can just say it.
I'd love to get that one in Discovery, though.
Yeah. See, but people do say it. People do post that kind of nonsense on social media. They post it, and who's going to challenge them? And so, to Marshall's point, people are going to post that the elections are being manipulated. If you correct, quote unquote, the manner in which elections are held in order to resolve the perception that they are being manipulated by the Democrats, then an equal number of people are going to have the perception that it was quote-unquote corrected in order to facilitate the desires of the Republicans. Now, both will probably be wrong, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you become a dog chasing its tail after
forever. That's exactly what you have. By the way, Abby points out in the chat, which folks is linked above, that in Las Vegas, what did they do in Las Vegas over this issue? Some of the issues that Marshall raised. They got together a bipartisan commission, Republicans and Democrats, and they cleaned up the voter rolls. Hello? How about the government requiring states to establish bipartisan commissions to clean up their voter rolls? Would that not solve the problem?
Yeah, but then they'd argue, then the individual states would argue who's going to pay for it. Because it always comes down to money.
Well, you know what? We got money for a lot of other things. If it means that you have to throw some money behind it, great.
Yep.
So what?
Yep.
the cost of one cruise missile will probably cover all 50 states cleaning up their their voter rolls. So that's one less cruise missile to fire. There could be worse things in life. Jules, followed by William.
Hey Gary, how are you?
I am good. How are you, Jules?
You're real good, because in the last sentence you said what I was going to say about getting a bipartisan group together, cleaning up the voter rolls. So I'll try to follow the guy who reads carefully about the Epstein files and doesn't want to talk about conspiracies. But you bring up a good point. It used to be election day, it's election week, election year, election this way, election that way. I mean, other countries can do it, we can do it too. I mean, what's so hard about this? The only problem I see is that both Republicans and Democrats are trying to use the laws and the rules for their advantage. And that really has to stop. That's really what I have to say. I blame both parties. Of course, maybe one party does it better. The party that has a guy with a Nazi tattoo on lets him run for election, and everybody supports him. So maybe they do it better by sticking together. I don't know. But we really got to get our act together. We have people running who don't believe in any prisons anymore. Even if you murder someone, no prison, no lockup, no nothing. I mean, we're a very divided country.
Who's running that's a prison abolitionist?
In New York, what's that one? I don't know the woman. The one Mandani is supporting. No prisons. No prisons. No prisons. Murder, no prisons. But are you surprised, Marshall?
From that side of the progressive left, no, I'm not surprised. Prison abolitionism in a certain part of the progressive left that links itself with the European left is very popular.
Right. That's right. Obviously right. By the way, I didn't say hello to you, Marshall. I haven't spoken to you in a while. It's always good to hear your voice.
Always good to see you too, Jules.
Yeah, but we really, this is a good topic. Voting is very important for our country. That's very split right now. And we can't be fighting over, about what the rules should be. It's got to be bipartisan, and we have to settle it that way. I don't like the idea. Someone brought up the Supreme Court, and I'll end with this. We have a person on the Supreme Court that doesn't know what a woman is. So I hate people like that making decisions for the whole country about anything.
Wait a minute, there's a Supreme Court justice who does not know what a woman is?
Ketanji Brown couldn't define what a woman is.
No, I will say this. I don't think it's misused by the right. Yes, there was an answer of what a woman is. But typically, when Supreme Court justices are asked questions like that, and they're being interviewed in the middle of a confirmation hearing, typically they don't answer those questions because of cases that might come before them. Now, she didn't answer in the way every other justice ever had, which is, Senator, I can't answer that because of a case that might come before me. But that's where her non-answer came from. She didn't give a non-answer not because she didn't know what a woman was. She gave a non-answer because typically justices in confirmation hearings are not supposed to give answers that are specific like that.
Did she say that, or you're just...
No. I'm saying that's what people typically do. She responded differently. But typically the non-answers for everybody up to her had been that they had cases in front of them. They would have cases in front of them. She didn't say that.
I don't want to argue with you, Marshall, but it's very simple. All she had to say was biology determines that. That's all.
Yeah, my point is, that's been used as hate. That's been used as hate on the right. That in my opinion,
it's not Marshall's. It's not Marshall's projection. Her response was, when she asked to define the word woman, quote, "I can't, not in this context, I'm not a biologist." And then she added that as a judge, her role is to interpret the law and resolve disputes rather than provide academic definitions. And I think that is precisely what Marshall just said, in other words.
Yes, it's what he said, but her answer was so ridiculous, in my opinion, and in half the country's opinion, or maybe more than
because
half
half the countries don't watch Supreme Court confirmation hearings, and they expect justices to be partisan rather than nonpartisan.
Yeah.
They openly expect justices to answer questions that are political in the sense that they are political.
By the way, if anybody wants it, I just called up the entire exchange. I got the video clip of that. If anybody really wants it, if this is so important to people, let me know and I will be glad to send it to you. Thank you, Jules. I didn't thank Daryl earlier. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Marshall.
Gary,
We'll now go to
be well, Gary. Be well, Marshall. Scott, be well, and all others on this page. Be well. Bye-bye.
William, you're up. Thank you, Jules.
You know, the culture wars about who's a man, who's a woman, who's got a penis, who doesn't, who's posing as a man.
It's not the discussion.
No, that's not the topic. I know. Here, let me go back to the topic. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. All right, remember him? A week after the 2020 election, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick announced that he was going to offer $1 million paid from his campaign account to incentivize and encourage the reward of people to come out and report voter fraud. And ultimately somebody did.
It was a great thing to do because he knew he'd never have to pay.
Well, actually, he did have to pay one of them out. I think the person had to get sued for it. There was a campaign worker in one of the counties around Philadelphia that actually did find voter fraud. He found that one voter came and voted twice, and he reported it, and I believe he had to file a lawsuit, but to get the money, and Dan Patrick had to pay out the $25,000. And I believe that the voter that he found that voted twice was a Trump supporter, and he cast his vote and maybe his mother's vote for Trump. I don't know if she was dead or alive, but ultimately this did have a lawsuit and went and had the scrutiny of a judicial proceeding, and Dan Patrick had to pay out $25,000 for voter fraud. It's pretty interesting, but such a big bounty was offered, and so few incidents of voter fraud were found. Just one. People had all the incentive to go and file a lawsuit or to report it and just collect it. And if Dan Patrick was up on the up and up, he would have just paid it out and said, "Good, you found voter fraud." But I believe he had to be sued to cough up the money. Interesting. But the real bottom line is that there's been huge amounts of investigations about the alleged voter fraud, and what they've come up with is no substantial voter fraud has been found. So what we're trying to do now, what's the motivation to spend a tremendous amount of money and burden all the states?
Well, it helps promulgate the argument that there's voter fraud, because why would we be doing this if there was not a problem of widespread voter fraud? So it gets promulgated.
Yeah, that might be one motivation. And the other motivation is maybe Trump will get the law passed so that he can break a system that's not broken. Maybe this is something that will allow him to get tremendous amount of information that should be state information to which he's not otherwise entitled, and to engage in voter intimidation and all the kinds of robocalls and
right. So if you take this in context, the attempts to obtain state voter information on the federal level, they've actually been seized in some cases. You recall that the former Director of National Intelligence, showed up in Georgia to oversee the seizing of such records. There have been court cases supportive, actually, of them taking these records, I believe. This does present a more ominous view of what we are dealing with. And so that's a part of the context that I think I'm glad you brought up, William, that deserves our consideration, at least.
But Tulsi Gabbard actually has maybe incentive from foreign actors. She's got a curious relationship with friends of Russia, with Vladimir Putin.
Well, there's a macro issue. There's a whole macro issue.
They tried that when she ran for president of the Democratic Party.
Don't both sides it. That's a disservice to everybody to both sides this. We're talking about a specific person and specific issues and specific.
And I'm saying when she ran, the Democratic Party literally had the exact same criticism.
I had concerns when I learned about it that foreign actors are trying to manipulate our elections, and in fact that was proven, and that goes back to the 2016 election, and Tulsi Gabbard's connections. Like you can just try to both sides it, but Tulsi Gabbard has troubling connections with Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin, and also in the Green Party. Who's the other one? Jill Stein.
We have any proof of that other than that it's been lobbied?
Yeah, Jill Stein of the Green Party has some pretty funky relationships and goes to special dinners hosted by Vladimir Putin. So I don't know. There's you know that'll satisfy your desire to both sides it, but let's call balls and strikes and see where there's real corruption.
William, who benefits the most by eroding confidence in the American electoral process?
Well, for one, our enemies like
exactly.
Putin, our enemies like Putin, like whoever's running Iran.
That's correct. So yeah, this may be a misperception, and maybe the misperception has to be corrected, and maybe the way to correct it is to fix something that isn't broken, as opposed to countering the lies with the truth, because some people to want to embrace the lies. It's so much easier. There's been a lot of psychological studies about why people embrace conspiracy theories absent any evidence. And I'm not a person of authority to discuss it, but there have been a lot of studies of that. But as you so correctly point out, and this is not opinion, this is on the record fact, our government knows that for some time now, over a decade, and probably longer than I'm even considering, the foreign actors, primarily the Kremlin, have been attempting to cause us to lose confidence in our electoral system, to lose respect for one another if we are members of the other party or other philosophical viewpoint. And to quote Jesse Ventura, we're all a bunch of lemmings as a society because we fall for this trap. And we have the arguments all the time. It's the Democrats, it's the Republicans. Well, the Democrats did it too, the Republicans did it too. That's exactly playing into their hand. And if there's any area where we as the American people, I believe, as a group, are ignorant, I'm not saying stupid, are ignorant, is to the fact that we are allowing ourselves to be manipulated by the likes of Putin. And that's exactly to what you refer.
And he's not just interfering with the elections in the United States. He's interfering with elections in Romania, in Moldova. He's trying to gin up some sort of claim that he needs to go in and save Russians who are in Transnistria between Ukraine and Moldova. He's interfered with the elections in Europe. He's supported the AfD in Germany. He's supporting, to my knowledge, the so-called Reform Party in the UK that has Nigel Farage, who was the guy that precipitated Brexit. Putin had his hand behind the distrust in the system that led the UK to do the exit from the European the EU and have Brexit in the first place.
And
all of this corruption is initiated by Vladimir Putin.
And what has Brexit done for the residency of 10 Downing Street? Six prime ministers in 7 years, I think, was his current resignation.
Destabilizing elections is one of Putin's methods of attacking the West.
Of course,
writ large.
Of course. And then maybe we need some kind of, we can't rely on elections. We can't trust the electorate. We need somebody to come in and take charge because we're incapable of running our own elections. That's why we have all this fraud. All these people who volunteer every year, all these white-haired retirees at the election centers, they're involved in fraud, We can't trust them.
I've been volunteering in these elections since after Bush versus Gore. I've been volunteering.
And you must be really old because the prerequisite is that you have gray or white hair. So
I'm bald.
Yeah. Well, that explains it. That's how you got in there a little early. Thanks, William. Yeah, I think very excellent points you bring up today.
Thanks.
Hero, you're up.
Hey, thanks. I raised my hand quite a while back because of something Marshall said about universal mail-in ballots in California.
It was an example, probably not an exact example, but
you don't have to respond right away. So here's what we know. This idea that half, he says something half the population. I know it's not true, but half the population believes it. So obviously we have to accommodate them, right? Just like a bunch of people think. What was the other example? That Tylenol causes autism. I know it's not true, of course, but other people believe this, so we have to accommodate them. That is a serious dumbing down of our nation here. And is it we know where these ideas come from? They come from this administration, and they're not just out there in the ether somehow. I don't know how they're out there. We just have to accommodate them. And to this, Marshall said, well, I don't know how you deal with this. I don't know how half the people believe stupid shit. What am I supposed to do? We just have to accommodate them. But here's the thing, Marshall. You added to the stupid shit. You said that in California, people could just move and re-register and see that's why we can't have mail-in ballots because it's so easy to fraud.
That's not what I said.
No, you did say that. What are we
No, that's not what I said. I used California specifically. I used California specifically as an stop. I used California specifically as an example where you could move from one place to the other.
Marshall, hold on a second. Hero, please allow Marshall to respond to your proclamation, and then
I wasn't done with my proclamation.
You can continue, but you just stated something that Marshall said that he feels that you misstated. So let's get through that, clear that up, and you can finish. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm not claiming California commits voter fraud. I am saying, much like other states, people can move from one part of California to the other. Not have a change of address form, and occasionally have two mail-in ballots sent out. That doesn't mean the person on the other end fills it out.
That's exactly what I'm addressing that you're wrong about.
Okay, then please.
So you had to,
do the change of address forms always meet?
I am glad you restated what I think you said it. Good, perfect. So in California, when you re-register to vote, you'll be notified as your old county so that the voter rolls are properly cleaned up. If it's in between and it's too close and we happen to get two ballots sent in, there are barcodes on those ballots and those ballots are checked. And if one of them votes first, the second one will be cast provisionally and they will double check it. If you purposely did that on purpose, you are, you could be in deep trouble. It's, I think, up to 5 or 10 years in prison. $10,000 fine is big. It's a big offense. So, what you can do? You said you didn't know what we can do. What can we possibly do about these bad ideas? Things that aren't true. Like California and states like California have no way to check. This is a problem. This is an open problem. It's not an open problem. Stop saying things that aren't true. That's one way we can maybe help fix these problems.
Thank you, Hero. Folks, we are here Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock New York time, so until 5 o'clock New York time tomorrow. For the next edition of the Critical Thinking Forum, everybody be safe, be well, and peace out.
That was another episode of JohnKitoverNews.com. Thank you for joining us. This is Chicago Mayoral candidate John Kitover. Go to ChicagoMayorVote.com right now. That's ChicagoMayorVote.com, or go to ChicagoMayoral.com. You just listened to a debate about election fraud in America. Hit that like button, subscribe, comment. Thank you all for coming. I hope you have enjoyed this bonus episode of JohnKitoverNews.com. You just listened to stinking, ranking, faking Republican out of Hidalgo,